But look, we're trying to get something done. We're at the White House. Special guest joining us here momentarily, in person, in the flesh, the Hogster, Hogan Gidley. Frequent guest on the John Fredericks Show, comes on every week, even when he's sleep deprived and he's in between stuff and he's on a plane. He always calls in to our show. Hogan, it's great to have you here in person, in the flesh.
It's so great to be on the show in person, as you just mentioned, and you're here. You're at the White House today, so I'm really excited about it.
It's a lot of fun, and only better would be if I come up and do it in your office. I always tweet that picture out there with you on the phone in your office.
Sure, but anytime.
I tell you what, can I just sing your praises a little bit? Just take a second on that. Do you mind if I do that?
Start.
I am such a Hogan Gidley fan. First of all, he's an Astro fan, so you can't get better than that. He's an Ole Miss fan. Went to Ole Miss at Oxford. But I think that you are one of the most effective spokespeople the president had. Your level of passion, the way you can break things down, communicate with our audience. I always really look forward to getting you on and I always get a new perspective. You're doing a fabulous job.
Well, listen, I appreciate it, but I got to tell you, the boss makes it so easy when you have all of these successes to talk about, right? If I worked in the Barack Obama administration, we'd just sit here and stare at each other for a little bit and maybe talk about the White Sox, or something. But this president's had so many successes. It's incredible to see every day the way he acts and the way he does, and the accomplishments and his desire to make people's lives better. Mm-hmm. And he's done that at every level, not just with the economy, but rebuilding the military and defeating ISIS, criminal justice reform, things that so many people talked about forever. He gets in office and does, and this is 4 terms worth of accomplishments in 3 years. I mean, no one's seen anything like this before. And he looked at me the other day, and he often jokes and say, you really are lucky I brought you on this journey. And we just kind of laugh and start smiling. I said, yeah, it's the most incredible thing I've ever seen, not just to work with the White House and not just to work for this president, but what he's done in this country is transformative, and it's impacted people's lives for the better. Mm-hmm. And while, you sit here in the bubble and everyone's talking about impeachment, get outside of this city, and the American people know what he's done for them. Mm-hmm. They appreciate what he's done for them. And I'll give you one little anecdote. Talking to a reporter the other day at an outlet, I shall remain nameless, one of their things was they went up to the museum, which is the museum here in Washington, D.C., that focuses just on the news and the media.
Right, the
museum. Actually, it's a fascinating exhibit. But out front of that building, they have all 50 states, statewide papers under glass in front. When the impeachment started, they went up there to see what all 50 states were talking about. Not one of the papers mentioned impeachment on the front page. Not one. That tells you all you need to know about what we're doing here and what the Democrats are focused on. It's this partisan power grab. It's playing politics.
At the museum, what day was this?
It was a couple days ago.
So a couple days ago at the museum, 50 of the top papers, top daily newspapers in the United States, not one of them had impeachment top or bottom fold.
Correct. That's what they told me. They said we're going to do a story on how this was impacting the country. So they went up to the museum to check out the front pages, and nothing about impeachment. And that just shows you what the American people care about versus what this chattering class, these beltway bureaucrats, the political pundits here, that's all they care about is how can I get power some way, somehow, by taking down someone else, as opposed to saying, hey, how do we work together to not just make your record-setting accomplishments known, how do we expand them and do more things together? Because there are things on the table right now we've talked about, John. We've talked about the infrastructure that needs to be repaired. We've talked about our southern border that needs to be addressed. Prescription drug prices need to be talked about. USMCA, which is one of the things we're talking about today. Nancy Pelosi made the comment the other day. She didn't know if they were going to bring it up or not. She didn't think they'd vote on it. I mean, my goodness, this is estimated 250 to 500,000 jobs immediately into this economy. It's already so good, helping our ranchers and farmers and manufacturers. And while I understand there aren't a lot of farms, family farms in Ocasio-Cortez's district in New York, a lot of people across this country, that means something to them to be able to trade like that better with Mexico and Canada. And hopefully they'll see their way to get it done.
Well, she's not going to do it. I mean, we just talked to two congressmen. was it Jim Banks from Indiana, Northeast Indiana, and we talked to Congressman Mike Kelly from Pennsylvania, who told us she's not going to do it because she doesn't care if it's going to help people and add 1% GDP, add all these billions of dollars in economic opportunity for people, higher wages and jobs, because she doesn't want to give the president a win, period. So she'd rather have people suffer than a given administration a political win, which is a win for everybody.
It's the great Sarah Sanders, you'll remember, who used
Yes.
to be the press secretary, and she and I have been friends for 20 years, and she used to say all the time, Democrats have to decide, do they hate this president more than they love this country? And right now it appears they hate the president more. They just don't care. Because, look, this doesn't hurt Donald Trump. He's going to wake up and he's going to do his job, and he's going to make this country a better place to live in. It hurts the American people because they're the ones who deserve a government that works on their behalf, that accomplishes the things that they themselves voted to put them in office to do. And she just doesn't see that at all. And when we sit down with her to have a conversation about border numbers, or we sit down to have a conversation with her about Syrian policy, she gets up after a few minutes, slams the desk, and runs right to the press, runs right to the cameras and says, this was so horrible, this was so pointless. Well, you didn't listen to anything. We had generals in the room to talk to you about this serious policy.
Right.
And it didn't even matter because it's more important for her to play politics. And I hate to say it this way, but it's sad. It's disappointing. It's not. It is frustrating, but I can't imagine if I were a citizen in this country in one of the districts out there, and my representation said, I'm going to work with Donald Trump to get something done for you, and instead they just came here and went to parties and played politics. I'd be furious. I can't imagine the level of frustration.
Well, the one Democratic congressman, and this might be a little break in the dam, from southern New Jersey, from the Cape May area, Trump district, said the other day, he's sick of the whole thing. He's like, why are we doing this? I came here, he said, as a Democrat to get things done for the American people. I want to stop surprise medical billing. I want to do prescription drugs. I want to build bridges and roads. I want to do something.
Right.
I want to get USMCA passed. That's why I came here, and I'm tied up in these impeachment hearings.
And he also said there was no impeachable offense.
That's right.
The same congressman. And that's funny because every single witness the Democrats have called so far have said the same thing. There's no impeachable offense. They can't point to anything. So what are we doing this for?
It's a policy debate because they hate the president's America First policy. He's disrupting the status quo. I mean, you heard, 2 days of whiny U.S. diplomats basically pissed off because they have to implement a policy that they don't believe in.
Right, but also they also said the president's policy on Ukraine was better than Barack Obama's.
That's true.
Because our president actually gave them lethal aid to protect themselves against an aggressive Russia, while Barack Obama gave them, as the President Trump likes to say, blankets and pillows. So while they were it was a very dangerous situation under Barack Obama for the Ukrainians. At least they were more comfortable. I mean, they had pillows, they had blankets. I mean, this is the kind of thing that gets lost in the wash, that the president's actually working to protect our partners and allies across this globe and protect our citizens who live abroad as well. When he did what he did with Syria and moving troops out of the way from the Turkish incursion. Those are the types of things that are policies that the establishment hasn't seen or hasn't dealt with, I guess, in decades, because they're used to doing it their way. And he ran on doing it differently. So it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that he does it differently. And so when Ukraine gets the weapons it needs, it's because of Donald Trump. He's the one who stood up to protect them against, by the way, Russia, proving yet again that we've been tougher on Russia than any other president since Reagan.
You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network and the John Fredericks Radio app. I want to thank all of our affiliates across the Mid-Atlantic. We're live at the White House today. This is a very prestigious radio event for several selected top surrogates for the White House. We appreciate the invite. With us is our good friend, live and in person, the Hogster, Hogan Gidley, Deputy Communications Director for the President of the United States, Deputy Press Secretary, and I think is one of the most effective spokespeople in America on behalf of the President and his America First policy agenda. Hogan, let me ask you a tough question.
Okay.
I asked this to Kellyanne on my show the other day, and we put together the War Room Impeachment show with Steve Bannon in Steve Bannon's basement.
Right.
And it's gone very well. We've syndicated it nationally. So I asked this question to Kellyanne, and she told me to ask Bannon because he was there in the basement. But my question is, as our audience keeps texting me, they look at this and they say, okay, you said there's 4,000 political appointees when the president comes into office. We know that only 1,500 of those have been filled, 2,500 are open. We also know that many of the ones that were filled were from people from previous Republican administrations that don't really like the president, don't support his policies. So half of the people we actually filled it with don't like his policies. And we read the Nikki Haley book, and we read about General Kelly. Everybody gets that, or some people do. So the question is, you look at Yovanovitch, yes, in the Ambassador Yovanovitch the other day, and some of these others, and you say to yourself, why weren't they fired in the first 90 days? Like, middle America can't understand this. Why are they there? Well, and the guy who's testifying this week from Ukraine, the commander, Vindman, I mean, after he blasts the president's policies, he gets back on an airplane and goes back there to not implement the president's policies, which is the purpose of the 4,000 political appointees to drive the president's agenda forward. Can you help us understand this?
Maybe.
Okay.
Okay. It's tough to get because it doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't make any sense because we're talking about government and the way big government operates and the way big government works. So when you come into office, the behemoth that is the federal government is so massive. Oftentimes these people will just sit and hide and wait, stick out administrations, and you don't have the right to fire them because so many in the government aren't political appointees. They are career officials. You'll hear this word all the time. Is he a career or is he a political? A career means they've been in the government across administrations. But could you imagine for a moment, think of any congressional seat across the country. I'm trying to think of a name that would come to mind, but let's just say someone who, Congressman Fredericks. Let's say you're ousted by Congressman Gidley, okay? I come into office, you're telling me I have to use your staff? No. You take your staff with you, and then I bring in my own staff.
Of course.
That makes total sense.
To forward your agenda.
Of course, to forward the agenda that I was elected to carry out by the people.
Right.
The same is here. The same logic should apply here, but doesn't. Because the government's so big, because the government is layered. But I will tell you some of the positives you have to understand. Ambassador O'Brien now is at the NSC. You saw the other day he reduced it basically by half.
Right.
To numbers that Condi Rice had when she was NSC, and they were running 2 wars. Think about this. We were in a time of peace under the previous administration and this one, and had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. Their press operation was bigger than the White House's by threefold. So he came in and said, no, we're not doing this bloated government stuff. We're getting rid of a lot of these folks. We're getting the numbers back down. Those are things that are positive, but this is why it's so big and so massive. If you have a first-year term that's 4 years, you don't start to figure this stuff out until the 3rd year. You can't start to pinpoint these issues really for a while. So kudos to the president for recognizing it, talking about it for a long time, taking the message directly to the American people, not letting the mainstream media filter it out and say what should or shouldn't be. He's called this out, and I think it's made the American people sit and go, wait a minute, what does he have to put up with every day? And I think some changes are coming.
So in a second term for the president, you would see a difference in the way personnel has been handled, that these positions will be filled with Trump supporters that believe in his America First agenda.
I would hope so. Again, there are so many out there you cannot fire just legally. You can't get rid of those
But I'm
folks.
talking about the political appointees that serve at the pleasure of the president. And Secretary Zinke was on our show the other day, and he said something to me that I couldn't stop thinking about this weekend. He said that the former Secretary of the Interior, Secretary Udall, has had his entire staff filled in 3 weeks. Entire staff, all staff, 100%. 3 weeks done. And Zinke said 8 months and he had 15%. He just couldn't get people through political hits, media hits, negative, this, that, they're out, paperwork, social media.
Right. It's amazing.
Scary.
It's amazing, and I'll tell you, it does make you wonder how in the world I got here.
Exactly. That's my next question.
Right,
how are you here?
I have no idea, and I was like, if one word is out of place in the last 20 years on social media, then forget about it. Those are the things that prevent a lot of good people from working in the federal government, and a lot of people, quite frankly, who have had good careers, who are smart, intelligent, love this country. They don't want to go through the background checks. They don't want to go through the scrutiny. They don't want to have to deal with some of the spotlight that comes along with this. And that's a shame, because I think the federal government misses out on some good business people, some good people in this, good moral America-loving folks, because they don't want to have to deal with all of the nonsense of trying to be taken down by the left just because you don't agree with their views.
Hogan Gidley, the hoster, they're summoning you. But you spent the most time with us because I know we're special.
That's true.
Thank you, Hogan Gidley. You're the man. And
anytime, John. Thanks so much
for
coming
you
and having me on all the time. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, sir.